Welcome back to our channel. Today we unravel the gripping story of Sheriff Buford Pusser, a man whose life and death have fascinated people for decades. Known for his fearless fight against crime and corruption in rural Tennessee, Pusser's larger-than-life persona made him both a local hero and a national figure. But behind the badge and the bravery lies a tale of triumph, tragedy, and unanswered questions. From his rise to fame as a crime-fighting sheriff to the controversies that clouded his legacy and the mysterious car crash that claimed his life at just 36, Pusser's story is as captivating as it is heartbreaking. Join us as we dive deep into the hidden life and mysterious ending of Sheriff Buford Pusser. The story of Sheriff Buford Pusser is one of grit, determination, and unrelenting courage. A tale that has gripped the public's imagination for decades. Pusser wasn't just another lawman. He was a symbol of justice in the face of corruption, a towering figure who rose to national prominence as a fearless protector of rural Tennessee. His life was as dramatic as any Hollywood movie, and the impact of his actions still echoes through time. Buford Pusser was born on December 12th, 1937 in the small town of Finger, nestled in McNairy County, Tennessee. His upbringing was shaped by his father, Carl, who served as the police chief of Adamsville, a role that instilled in Buford a deep respect for law and order. Carl's influence on his son was profound, setting the stage for Buford's future as a champion of justice. Even as a child, Buford stood out, not just for his height, but for his commanding presence. By the time he reached high school, he had grown into an imposing figure, towering over 6 feet 6 inches tall. This exceptional physicality made him a natural athlete. On the basketball court and football field, he was a force to be reckoned with, dominating games with a mix of power and precision. His athletic abilities earned him recognition in the community, showcasing his discipline and determination, traits that would later define his career as a lawman. However, Buford's early aspirations didn't center on becoming a sheriff. With his father's encouragement, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, hoping to serve his country. But fate had other plans. A diagnosis of asthma cut short his military dreams, forcing him to leave the Marines before completing his training. This setback could have discouraged many, but Buford saw it as a detour, not a defeat. His resilience and ability to adapt would become hallmarks of his character. In 1957, Buford left Tennessee for Chicago, where he embarked on an unlikely yet fascinating chapter of his life: professional wrestling. Standing tall and exuding raw strength, Buford quickly made a name for himself in the wrestling world. Fans were drawn to his larger-than-life persona, giving him nicknames like the Big Bull and Buford the Bull. These monikers weren't just for show. Buford lived up to them in the ring, where his physical prowess and unyielding spirit earned him a loyal following. One event, in particular, cemented his status as a folk hero: Buford's infamous match against a grizzly bear. Yes, you heard that right, a grizzly bear. The spectacle was as wild as it sounds, and it became a defining moment in Buford's wrestling career. His victory over the bear was the stuff of legend, further solidifying his reputation as a man who could take on any challenge, no matter how daunting. Yet, despite his growing fame in the wrestling circuit, Buford felt a pull back to his roots. The lessons instilled in him by his father, combined with his natural sense of duty, ultimately led him back to Adamsville in 1962. Wrestling may have showcased his strength, but Buford realized that his true calling lay in using that strength to protect and serve his community. This decision marked the beginning of his remarkable journey as a law enforcement officer and eventually a legendary sheriff. In 1959, Buford Pusser took a pivotal step in his personal life, marrying Pauline Mullins, the woman he would come to call the love of his life. Their union wasn't just a romantic milestone, it was the beginning of a partnership that would define Buford's most challenging and transformative years. Pauline was more than a supportive wife. She was his confidant, his anchor, and a source of strength during the tumultuous journey ahead. Together, they built a home filled with love, and in time, they welcomed their daughter, Dwana, completing their small but close-knit family. While his family life was thriving, Buford's career was about to take a dramatic turn. By 1962, his days as a professional wrestler were coming to an end. Though the wrestling circuit had brought him fame and recognition, it was a world far removed from the values instilled in him during his upbringing. His father's legacy as a dedicated police chief in Adamsville loomed large, pulling Buford back to his roots and inspiring him to follow in his father's footsteps. Leaving behind the spotlight of the wrestling ring, Buford returned to Adamsville with a renewed sense of purpose. He joined the local law enforcement, stepping into a role that would soon transform his life and the lives of those around him. The skills he had honed as a wrestler, strength, discipline, and determination, became invaluable assets in his new career. But beyond his physical prowess, it was Buford's sense of justice and unshakable commitment to protecting his community that quickly set him apart. This transition marked the beginning of Buford's rise to prominence in law enforcement. As he donned the badge, he carried with him not just the weight of his responsibilities, but also the hopes of a community grappling with crime and corruption. His decision to trade the wrestling ring for the streets of Adamsville wasn't merely a career change. It was a profound shift in purpose, driven by his desire to honor his father's legacy and safeguard the town he called home. The early 1960s would prove to be a turning point in Buford Pusser's life, a time when family, duty, and an unwavering sense of justice converged to set him on the path to becoming one of the most legendary sheriffs in Tennessee's history. Buford Pusser's rapid rise through the ranks of law enforcement was nothing short of extraordinary, a journey fueled by his unwavering dedication and fearless resolve. Starting as a constable, Buford quickly made a name for himself as someone who didn't just wear the badge, he lived by it. His hard work and natural leadership earned him the position of police chief, where his effectiveness and courage caught the attention of both his community and law enforcement leaders. But it was in 1964, at just 27 years old, that Buford Pusser made history. He became the youngest sheriff ever appointed in McNairy County, Tennessee. For a community struggling under the weight of crime and corruption, Buford's appointment wasn't just a new chapter, it was a lifeline. Media outlets at the time hailed his youth and vigor as a beacon of hope, while his reputation as a man who took action inspired trust among the people. From the very beginning of his term, Buford faced challenges most would find insurmountable. The State Line Mob and the Dixie Mafia, the two most dangerous criminal organizations in the region, had built empires on bootlegging, prostitution, drug trafficking, and murder. These groups operated with brutal efficiency, using fear and violence to maintain their power. For years, they had been untouchable, their reach extending even into the ranks of law enforcement. But Buford Pusser was unlike any sheriff McNairy County had seen before. He didn't just enforce the law, he made it his mission to dismantle the criminal empires that had terrorized the community. Leading from the front, Buford organized daring raids on illegal operations, disrupted drug supply chains, and targeted the mob leaders themselves. His relentless pursuit of justice sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld, earning him a reputation as a sheriff who couldn't be bought or intimidated. As news of Buford's efforts spread, He became a hero not just to the people of Tennessee, but across the nation. Local newspapers published glowing articles praising his courage and determination. Radio programs discussed his daring raids, and his name began to appear in headlines nationwide. Fan letters poured into his office from people who saw him as a modern-day folk hero, someone who embodied the values of integrity and bravery. One letter printed in a Tennessee newspaper read, "Sheriff Pusser has shown us that one man's courage can stand against the might of organized crime. He's a hero for the people." Another admirer wrote, "Buford Pusser isn't just fighting crime, he's fighting for the soul of our community." These sentiments reflected the deep admiration and gratitude many felt for a man who was willing to risk everything for their safety. However, Buford's crusade against organized crime came at a high cost. His relentless efforts made him a target for those whose power and profits were threatened by his actions. Assassination attempts became a grim reality of his daily life. Media reports from the time documented several near-fatal encounters, each one a testament to the dangers he faced. Yet these attempts only seemed to strengthen his resolve. One of the most publicized attempts on his life occurred when a gunman ambushed Buford's car, firing multiple shots before fleeing the scene. While most would see this as a sign to step back, Buford pressed forward, becoming even more determined to rid his county of the criminal forces that sought to destroy it. The bravery he displayed didn't go unnoticed. Local news stations aired segments celebrating his resilience, and citizens rallied behind him, often volunteering to assist in his efforts to keep the county safe. The media dubbed him the Iron Sheriff, a nickname that encapsulated his unyielding strength and determination. Television programs and magazine profiles painted him as a symbol of hope, contrasting his courageous fight with the fear and corruption that had plagued the region for years. Despite the threats and the personal costs, Buford Pusser remained steadfast. He wasn't just fighting for law and order. He was fighting to prove that no matter how powerful the forces of corruption might seem, they could never stand against the will of a determined community united by justice. His story captivated the public not only because of his actions, but because of the principles he stood for. Buford's legacy as a sheriff wasn't just about the arrests he made or the criminals he took down. It was about inspiring people to believe in the power of one person's determination to make a difference. In 1967, Sheriff Buford Pusser's life was shattered by a tragedy that shook McNairy County and captured the attention of the nation. Buford and his wife Pauline had set out together, as they often did, to investigate a disturbance, an act that reflected their shared commitment to community and justice. But what began as a routine trip ended in a horrific ambush that would leave Buford gravely injured and his beloved Pauline dead. As their car turned onto New Hope Road, a second vehicle pulled alongside them, and a hail of bullets tore through the windows. The scene was chaotic and devastating. Pauline was struck multiple times, and despite Buford's efforts to shield her, the wounds proved fatal. Buford himself was critically injured, with gunshot wounds to his jaw and face that would require multiple surgeries and skin grafts to repair. He spent days in the hospital enduring excruciating pain, but even as he recovered, his grief overshadowed his physical suffering. News of the attack spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through Tennessee and beyond. Pauline's death was a heartbreaking loss for the community. Local newspapers ran headlines mourning the loss of a devoted wife and mother, and vigils were held in her honor. Friends and neighbors described Pauline as kind-hearted and supportive, a true partner in Buford's fight for justice. Her death struck a chord with many who saw the Pussers as symbols of hope in a county plagued by crime and corruption. Buford's own survival seemed almost miraculous, and his determination to seek justice for Pauline's murder made him a national figure. Letters of support poured into McNairy County from people across the country. Fans praised Buford for his courage, with one admirer writing, "Sheriff Pusser, your bravery gives us hope that justice can still prevail in this world." Others compared him to a Western hero, a lone lawman standing up against the forces of evil. The media followed the story closely, painting Buford as a tragic figure, a grieving husband who had lost everything but refused to back down. Television segments and magazine articles chronicled his recovery and his vow to bring those responsible to justice. The narrative of a man fighting for his wife's memory against a backdrop of danger and corruption resonated deeply with the public, elevating Buford's story to legendary status. Buford wasted no time in identifying the man he believed to be the mastermind behind the attack, Kirksey McCord Nix Jr., the infamous leader of the Dixie Mafia. The Dixie Mafia, already notorious for its ruthless tactics and sprawling criminal enterprises, became the focus of Buford's relentless pursuit. Naming Nix as the architect of the ambush was a bold move, one that further cemented Buford's image as a fearless warrior against organized crime. His hunt for justice turned into a personal crusade. Over the following months, Buford tracked down those he believed were involved in the attack. Several gang members met violent ends, with some killed in Tennessee and others found dead in Texas under mysterious circumstances. These events only heightened the public's fascination with Buford's story. Supporters hailed him as a hero, a man willing to go to any lengths to uphold justice and honor his wife's memory. However, not everyone viewed Buford's actions in a positive light. Some media outlets began to question whether his pursuit of revenge had crossed ethical lines. Were these deaths the result of legitimate law enforcement, or had Buford blurred the boundaries between justice and vengeance? This controversy added complexity to his story, sparking debates that kept his name in the headlines. Despite the questions, public sentiment largely remained in Buford's favor. Fan clubs dedicated to the sheriff sprang up, and his supporters continued to send him messages of encouragement. One letter, published in a local newspaper, read, "Sheriff Pusser reminds us that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear badges and stand up to the darkness." The ambush and Pauline's death also inspired filmmakers and authors, further immortalizing Buford's story. The tragedy became a central part of Walking Tall, the blockbuster film that brought Buford's life to the silver screen. Fans flocked to theaters, moved by the portrayal of his loss and determination. For many, the film reinforced Buford's image as a man who had endured unimaginable pain but remained steadfast in his mission to protect his community. While Sheriff Buford Pusser's legacy is largely one of heroism and justice, it was not without its share of controversy. Even as he was celebrated for his fearless fight against organized crime, a shadow of doubt emerged, fueled by accusations from publisher Barbara Bivens. Her claims, both sensational and shocking, painted a very different picture of Buford, a picture that threatened to undermine the very foundation of his legendary status. Bivens alleged that Buford had been complicit in illegal activities, including drug trafficking and human trafficking. These accusations were not only shocking, but deeply personal, as she also claimed that Buford had orchestrated the murder of his own wife, Pauline, and staged his injuries to cover it up. Furthermore, she questioned the circumstances surrounding Buford's fatal encounter with Louise Hathcock, suggesting that it was premeditated murder rather than a defensive act of justice. The media was quick to seize on these explosive claims, and the story became a topic of national debate. Headlines like "Hero" or "Villain." The Buford Pusser controversy graced newspapers, while television segments dissected the allegations, questioning whether the fearless sheriff had a darker side. Some outlets sided with Bivens, treating her accusations as a revelation that tarnished Buford's legacy. Others pushed back, framing the claims as baseless attacks designed to sell books and gain notoriety. Fans of Buford Pusser, however, were not so easily swayed. Letters of support poured in, with people voicing their disbelief and outrage at the accusations. One admirer wrote, "Buford Pusser sacrificed everything to protect his community. The idea that he would harm his own wife or be involved in criminal activities is unthinkable." Another supporter commented in a local newspaper, "These claims are nothing but slander." Buford Pusser stood for justice, and no amount of lies can change that. Community members who had worked closely with Buford also came to his defense. Former colleagues described him as a man of integrity, someone who put his life on the line to combat the corruption that plagued McNairy County. Buford wasn't perfect, but he was honest, one deputy said in an interview. He cared about this community more than anything, and that's what people need to remember. Despite the widespread support, the allegations raised by Bivens lingered, casting a shadow that was hard to ignore. The FBI conducted a thorough investigation into the claims but found no evidence to support them. This lack of proof might have cleared Buford in the eyes of the law, but it did little to silence the ongoing debates. The controversy gave rise to a more complex narrative, one that portrayed Buford not just as a hero, but as a deeply polarizing figure. The media frenzy surrounding the allegations only added fuel to the fire. Talk shows debated whether Buford's actions as sheriff had crossed ethical lines, and tabloid magazines ran provocative stories questioning his motivations. Some journalists suggested that the accusations were a reflection of the challenges faced by larger-than-life figures like Buford, whose every action is scrutinized under the public's microscope. For many fans, however, the controversy only deepened their admiration for Buford. To them, he was a man who had endured unimaginable losses and made extraordinary sacrifices for the greater good. The fact that he continued to fight for justice despite the accusations only reinforced his status as a hero. Social media groups and fan clubs dedicated to Buford's memory shared posts defending him, with hashtags like #Justice for Buford and #TrueHero trending in local communities. Meanwhile, the accusations gave rise to another layer of fascination with Buford's story. Filmmakers and authors explored the controversy, using it as a lens to examine the complexities of his character. Documentaries delved into the claims, highlighting the contrasting narratives and asking audiences to draw their own conclusions. This duality, the celebrated hero versus the alleged anti-hero, ensured that Buford's story remained a topic of public intrigue. Ultimately, the controversy surrounding Buford Pusser didn't diminish his legacy. It added depth to it. He became not just a symbol of justice, but a reminder of the complexities and contradictions that often accompany larger-than-life figures. For his supporters, he was a man who stood tall in the face of adversity, a hero whose legacy would endure despite the challenges. For his detractors, he was a puzzle, a figure whose story continues to provoke questions and debates. Buford Pusser's untimely death in 1974 marked the tragic end of a life defined by bravery, loss, and unrelenting determination. On that fateful day, his car crashed under mysterious circumstances, and while the official investigation ruled it an accident, many, including Buford's own family, believed otherwise. To them, it was no coincidence. His relentless fight against organized crime had made him enemies, powerful enemies, and his death only deepened the intrigue surrounding his legacy. The crash occurred as Buford was driving alone, heading back from what should have been an ordinary trip. Eyewitnesses reported that his car swerved unexpectedly before striking an embankment and bursting into flames. The suddenness of the event left a cloud of unanswered questions. Was the steering tampered with? Could there have been foul play? Or was it simply a tragic accident caused by mechanical failure or human error? For his family, these questions were haunting. Dwana Pusser, Buford's daughter, became the most vocal advocate for her father's honor and legacy. In interviews, she passionately defended Buford against accusations and conspiracy theories. She called claims that he had been complicit in corruption absurd and rejected any suggestion that her father's death was anything other than a deliberate act orchestrated by those seeking revenge. Dwana's heartfelt words resonated with many who had admired Buford's courage. "My father was a hero," she once said. "He stood up to corruption knowing full well the risks. He wouldn't have harmed a single innocent person, let alone the family he loved so much." Her unwavering dedication to preserving Buford's memory struck a chord with the public, reinforcing the image of a man who sacrificed everything for his community. The media also played a significant role in shaping the narrative of Buford Pusser's death. Local and national outlets covered the crash extensively, with headlines questioning whether the crash was an accident or an assassination. Investigative reports delved into his conflicts with the Dixie Mafia and the State Line mob, highlighting just how many enemies Buford had made during his time as sheriff. Documentaries revisited his life and death, portraying him as both a fearless hero and a man whose story was shrouded in mystery. The public's fascination with Buford only grew after his death. Fans who had followed his career during his lifetime now rallied to honor his memory. Vigils were held in McNairy County, and letters poured in from across the nation expressing sorrow for the loss of a man many viewed as a symbol of justice. One letter, published in a Tennessee newspaper, read, "Buford Pusser wasn't just a sheriff. He was a beacon of hope in dark times. His bravery will never be forgotten." The release of Walking Tall, a blockbuster film based on Buford's life, further cemented his status as an American icon. Audiences were captivated by the larger-than-life portrayal of a sheriff who took on organized crime with nothing but a badge, a club, and an unyielding sense of justice. The film's success led to sequels and remakes, ensuring that Buford's story would reach new generations. Fans of the movie often expressed how inspired they felt by Buford's story. One viewer wrote on a fan forum, "Watching Walking Tall reminded me that one person's courage can make a difference. Buford Pusser's legacy is a reminder that even when the odds are against you, you can still stand tall." Even decades later, Buford Pusser's name remains synonymous with resilience and courage. Social media groups and fan clubs continue to share stories, photos, and tributes celebrating his life and contributions to justice. On anniversaries of his death, fans post messages like, "Gone but never forgotten." Buford Pusser's bravery inspires us all to fight for what's right. And that concludes the remarkable and tragic story of Sheriff Buford Pusser, a man who dedicated his life to justice, left an indelible mark on Tennessee's history, and became a legend immortalized in cinema. Whether viewed as a hero, a flawed figure, or a mix of both, Pusser's legacy continues to spark fascination and debate. Thank you for joining us on this journey through his extraordinary life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the hidden lives and untold tales of iconic figures. See you in the next video.